Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our presentation on modern money. And our presenter tonight is Liz Yoder, Director of Financial Planning, and she is with Planning Across the Spectrum. And it's our second presentation. We've had Liz as our speaker. She was great talking about independent living skills a few months ago. We're so happy that she's come back to talk about this important topic of modern money. And I want to get right to it. So everybody enjoy. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But I am going to let Liz take over from here. So thank you so much. And please enjoy the presentation.
Thank you. And thank you for giving a lot of time because we have a long PowerPoint to get through. And because everybody's different, I want to touch on a lot of different areas of what modern money looks like for children and for adults. And think about kind of how the tools work for your child because of who they are, or for yourself because of who you are. I'm going to try my best to get through as much as I can. There are a couple repeats from the previous presentation on independent living skills, but I'll try and get through as much as I can so we have enough time for questions. So I'm Liz Yoder. I'm the Director of Financial Planning at Planning Across the Spectrum. We do financial planning and investment management for families who have a need to look at what their whole financial picture looks like. And very often we just take questions and send people on their way to find the resources that are right for them. We specialize in helping any individual, family, or employer with those with autism and other disabilities pursue financial independence. And that really is different for every individual. So what are we trying to cover today? We'll cover how it's important for everyone, especially and including those with autism and other intellectual disabilities, to learn money skills to pursue their own independence. We'll go through some examples of money skills for children and adults and how to teach them. We'll try and focus on some of those teaching elements for those who are still learning the process. But we'll also go through some more tools to access as an adult. Some of us might be learning this the first time, and that's okay, because I'll get into why that is. But I'll move on here. So there are so many strengths to autism that encourage good financial management, actually. So there's strong long-term memory, there's detail orientation, direct communication, need for black and white thinking, which finances and money are very much black and white. It's either there or it's not, and intensive focus. So a lot of people actually do well with knowing what they have, knowing what they need it for, and making sure that it's there. So why don't we talk about this? Well, because we also know that in early education, it's not a focus of teaching young children of any ability level about financial management, and particularly with students with autism, they might be focusing on other living goals and sets of living that don't have a direct impact on financial management. This quote here we like to share: financial management and decision making are often seen as outside the purview of professionals working with people with autism. Educational programs that include financial literacy in both schools and independent living programs could increase autonomy and quality of life for people with autism. There are so many reasons why this is. First, it teaches confidence in someone's ability to make decisions for themselves. But also with time, people can learn from mistakes, and the smaller the mistake, the easier it is to kind of continue making their own decisions into the future. The earlier a mistake is made, maybe the earlier the lesson is learned. So we want to encourage all families to work on educating their children as early as possible. So, what are the money skills that we need to just get started? Um, Sometimes this is early children education, working as a family, and sometimes this is older children or adults who are really just starting to conceptualize what money is. It's okay to start wherever you are, but we do encourage, if you are able, to work on these skills as you're growing as a family, as your child is young, and as they can start to practice, learn, and make mistakes early when it makes a significant impact. So money management, um, the dollars and cents of things. How can we help? The earlier, the better. We want to address basic money skills to encourage people's connection with what money is, how it relates to what people need and want out of their daily life. And each age group will have a different need of what their financial money management skills will require. Um, Definitely, money identification and counting are really important. So the how to teach it includes using real coins and real dollars, even though we don't use them very often in real life anymore. We often will use a card or very infrequently a check to pay for rent or different things like that. Um, but we still want to make sure we understand as a child what dollars and cents actually are. And anything that mimics dollars and cents is not going to teach the real world application of what money actually is. You definitely want to see, feel, touch, smell, and understand what money is, and so that it translates from one concept to another. Once they are able to sort and identify the values, then it's helpful for them to kind of put them into pieces, use it for math, use it for other things, creating patterns and things like that. Um, so for lower functioning children, we again don't encourage the use of plastic or fake money because they aren't the same. They don't have the same meaning. If you can't translate one to the next, then the meaning will be lost in the real world. Start with small denominations and work up. So pennies, nickels, and dimes, then quarters. And this is all kind of how we learn math in school, also. So it's always helpful to go through and use the skill sets that are being taught in school and compare them to real life things. And one of the most everyday things that people use is money, even if they're not always going to be the person making that decision. Um, you want to encourage them to have that skill set so maybe they can in the future. Um, the first step is in creating independence is within money skills is identification and counting. All other money skills are based and scaffolded off of this one practice. Um, Allowance is an easy way to kind of build up the concept of money. I have a new wallet for my son who has his coins and dollars, and he gets to go to the Lego place in Annapolis. He'll go and pick out something with the allowance that he had. It takes him a while to save up enough for a little Lego set, but he knows that that's going towards what he wants. It builds independence, decision making, and it helps them kind of encourage to save. It helps them learn that when they present dollars to somebody, it gets them what they want. Um, There are games that mimic allowance. So for the kids who are more prone to being interested in game playing, the board games are a really good way to reinforce money identification and value with play. Um, and this game is actually called Allowance. But when you're playing a game at home when you're trying to build money skills, it is important to keep consistent. Again, with routine based and habits, it always helps to build a practice and understanding of what's going to happen. Play the same day each week. Play the same amount each week and the same denominations, and make sure that the concept is being learned and felt, and that they're able to put things together. Money exchange is again what I was saying. What I'm doing with my son with his allowance is making sure that he's the one handing over the money. That this is what I'm giving you to get this thing back. It teaches independence and responsibility, and it teaches the value of what you can buy. Money exchange can be done at home again with young children by playing, shopping, by playing games like restaurant, or by playing like things that you can order and give money and can give you something in return. Store or restaurant or anything else. Use their special interest to get them engaged. If they love a particular show, or if they love a particular toy, use their toy collection to build around a store. And for older children, just just get them in the store, use cash, and have them buy what they want. Um, Also, just always help with decision making when the price is too high for what they brought, and help people understand that you have to wait longer for some items that are really important to somebody. Um, so if you need to, you can always use online shopping, to if the store setting is too busy or overwhelming, when that's not going to be the greatest place to go as a family or with your child, or the time is just not right when you're home and doing this activity, the stores are closed. Go online and see what you can do there. Again, use the special interest and do the shopping together in a way that encourages that independence and that ability to connect the value of money. Um, in childhood, we want to see people setting up bank accounts, and a bank account will teach the child again that you can put money away and that it will earn interest. Now we know that interest rates are have not been great. They've been growing a little bit. But it is teaching the child that if you decide not to keep it at home, it might grow. Um, Teaches about basic banking terms, deposit, balance, debit card, um, draw, and it can teach children about needs versus wants and why it's important to save. Um, Certainly bring your child along with you to your own bank if that is a setting that will be acceptable in a sensory way. Get them comfortable in there if you feel like it is something that they can work up to. Call the bank ahead of time to see what times are best, or what are quietest, so that you can go in a non-distracted time frame, and see if they offer anything to children. If there's something fun that a child would receive, um, see if they have children bank accounts or anything interesting that they do. And have your child put a portion of their allowance in aside, whether in a jar or a piggy bank, and bring it to that to deposit at the cashier and see what they do. Um, definitely review with your child your statement and see how the account is doing month to month. If anything changes, see the interest that's being earned by doing nothing but just having it in the bank. Um, Definitely choose a bank that has hours outside of typical banking hours. This is for children and adults. You don't want to pick a bank that you can't get to because everybody's in school and everybody's at work, or the time of the day is just different when somebody is going to be the most alert, awake, and supportive of new ideas. Um, we want to be able to bank when we can. So sometimes having a physical bank isn't going to be the best fit, particularly the long term in adulthood. Certainly, there won't be necessarily as many cash um, deposits or coin collections or things like that require a physical bank. So an online bank may be the best fit for someone when they're no longer dealing in dollars and cents. Um, Use a bank that has minimum or no fees for low balances because we know that the accounts may not grow very much. That will try to keep the balance below a certain amount, um, so that it, particularly when someone's getting closer to 18, um, if they're trying to become eligible for benefits, you'll want to keep the account lower than the benefit limits, which are likely to be $2,000. Um, that doesn't have to be the case in childhood. You can have a bank account that grows if they're not going to be eligible for SSI in childhood, as long as you move the money or spend it or just adjust it prior to 18 when you're applying for benefits. That's fine. Um, and certainly use banks with good online resources. If you can't do what you want online, your child is not going to want to be on that online site either. And it will not be a helpful tool for them going forward. So try and use the banks that have good online resources. Certainly, charity is another item that we talk about with children learning, that it's important to connect giving to others when we have enough resources to do so. And it reminds us all that there are people who have challenges above and beyond what we experience. Whether or not you um, connect with an organization like a church or a hospital nonprofit organization, or an organization like Pathways, or an animal shelter. Um, Pick something that helps connect the child to what they care about and what their interests are, so that it really relates to the values that they have. We talk all the time about um, making sure our money is going where we most value time, and our energy and our resources should all be filtered into the same kinds of places. So teach that from an early age. Um, Definitely have um, show children the impact that their dollars can make by showing what the nonprofit is doing with the money that's collected. Use organizations that will receive small amounts that have a large impact. And you can also dollar for dollar match what your child has given, or you can even do a 3-for-1 if you wanted to, if you have the ability to do so. Make it fun, make it a family activity, and certainly use their interest, use organizations that have a concrete, real, transparent impact of what's happening. That um, this is kind of referencing the idea that you can buy animals for people around the world, to do farming, um, and so yeah, choose something that has a real impact. So we're going to move on to young adults or teenagers. Um, we learn different things like connecting the value of money in childhood. You can continue to do that in young adulthood as well. But in young adulthood, we're trying to encourage people to be even more independent and able to take on more responsibility for what they're doing. So again, selecting a bank, there are a couple things we want to make sure that happens. Certainly in adulthood, you want to make sure that that bank is working for that individual. And again, the account will not grow very much if someone's trying to be on benefits. So use a bank that is easy to get to, that the fees are low, if any. That some banks will reimburse ATM fees. Look for low transaction fees and low overdraft fees. Ease of deposits and withdrawals, online deposits and withdrawals or phone deposits are very helpful to have. Compare interest rates. Sometimes the cash will grow better at one bank versus another. And make sure that there aren't any minimum balance requirements, and that there's a good customer service department. Um, Now, you might not find what you're looking for 100%, and it's okay to have a just so bank if it's working for you and you are able to use it the way you need it to be used. Um, as long as it's not super frustrating and they listen to your needs, then it's probably going to work out just fine. Just the fees are a big concern, especially if the balance is going to be low and someone's going to be doing small deposits and withdrawals every once in a while. Um, Types of bank accounts, there's checking account for daily use. There's savings accounts for longer term savings. Now I'm going to speed ahead a couple of times. Um, there, as Neil mentioned, the slides will be included in the follow-up email. And so you'll be able to kind of look at what I skipped over or didn't expressly say on the slide. Um, Saving in a savings account is really going to be important for all of us to learn how to manage well. Saving teaches tracking a goal, tracking expenses, setting goals, planning for future finances, which is quite hard for many of us. It's actually not a natural psychological behavior to track to, to make a lot of long-term decisions. So we often need some support in that, planning for the future. It teaches discipline and commitment to goals and to what you said that you were going to do, and it teaches delayed gratification. If you put something away for many years and then you see that it's there when you need it, that's a really good feeling. Um, the why of saving is always going to be having money when you need it, having money put aside for emergencies, and taking advantage of unforeseen opportunities, um, reaching financial goals. So I'm going to pause here and go ahead in what I'm going to say. I haven't gotten to some of the slides about longer term savings for people who are going to be on benefits. I just want to mention right here that saving in an ABLE account is very often what our families plan to use. An ABLE account will still allow someone to be on Medicaid, so SSI and SSDI, of course, and the individual themselves can save for emergencies and long-term goals within the ABLE account. I'll get more into the ABLE account later, but I just wanted to mention here, especially since I said the checking and savings account might not grow very much, but an ABLE account can receive $17,000 a year at least. If the individual with the disability is working, then an additional $13,000 can be put into the account a year if they earn that much. And they're just they're the ABLE account is going to be that saving tool, that emergency fund, that long-term fund. So I just wanted to mention that now. Setting financial goals are why we save. We don't want to put money away if we're only thinking about today. So we need to think about what we need in the future in order to save. This is not an easy skill set for many folks with autism and many folks without, who really can't think very far beyond what the needs are today. So looking at setting goals is going to be very important to encourage savings. Things like focusing on what's going well and what's not going well might start that conversation on what to save for, and trying to focus on what people's values are, defining what a short-term and long-term goal looks like, and making it as concrete as possible. Tracking is important for goal setting, and putting a ticker might be helpful for some, so that you can feel connected to your progress, whether things are going well, things are not going well, and you have to readjust, or nothing's really changing and you have to figure out why. Credit as a adult is important to build, and so we encourage people to apply for credit when they become 18, even if they're going to be on disability benefits, even if they're living with their parents, and even if they don't have very many expenses on their own. Credit is excessively important for many life decisions, including renting an apartment, if that's ever going to be in the future, if that's part of the independence plan. And credit history is important to track, for various other reasons, borrowing money to purchase a car if someone's driving to work, things like that. So credit does offer greater flexibility and financial independence when used properly, to just have a little bit of kind of doorstop to when a paycheck is going to come. But credit needs to be used properly, in that people need to learn that you can't overspend what you're earning just because there's a card there. And that takes many of us some time to learn and practice. And so the easiest way to build credit is to open an account, put a recurring bill that already exists in your family's life, and just pay that off and just use the card that way, to build credit history. Put on Netflix. You're going to continue to use that forever, for as long as you want, and just have the individual pay it off themselves, and participate. A client of ours has their daughter paying the utility bills, so, and that can go on the credit, and um, and then paid off immediately. And it's a great way to build that credit history. Writing checks is another skill set that a young adult will need to learn, especially if they're going to be renting, if they'll ever have a child of their own that they're caring for, that they might have childcare needs. And so writing checks are a good practice of actually creating a history of expenses, and it teaches good balancing behaviors. Writing checks is really more fun when it's a fun check. Get a check when you're starting to learn, get checks that are meaningful to the person you're trying to teach. Use fun checks that are part of their interest area. If you use a fake check, fill it out, and teach an individual what each line is. It makes the effort to let the individual watch you as you write your own checks when they're younger, and make their own checks when they are old enough to pay rent. So if you have a young person who is on SSI and paying rent to you so that they get the full SSI amount, make sure you're not just transferring money from their account to your account. Have them get involved. Have them understand this is rent so that you get your full paycheck. And get them involved in that process. Even if you're writing the check, say, this is your rent check. This is how you are able to earn as much money as you do from Social Security. And connect the dots of why we're doing this. Even if and once somebody receives SSDI, we still say continue writing those checks for rent if that's something um, that's possible within the plan, because in the future, if they are going to be living independently and are going to be living in a rental space, you've already kind of put that connection there that this is the rent check. This is what rent feels like to leave my account every month. This is the time of month I pay my rent. It's a good practice of getting ready for that independence. Paying bills, again, if it's their bill, they should be paying it and get them involved as much as you can. If you're the one writing the amount, just make sure they're with you. Say, this is the money that we send to pay for um, your your pottery class that you love going to, and make sure that they're involved in the things that they're responsible for. Um, okay, I'm gonna move on. Another thing that it really teaches folks is looking at the health insurance explanation of benefits. Now, there's a lot that is on an explanation of benefits. Um, Not all of us look at those reports, but it does tell us what care we received, how much that care cost, how much our insurance took over, and how much is out of pocket. And if there's an out of network provider that we see, it'll be more out of pocket. So if someone's going to be going to doctors or clinicians, therapists that are out of pocket um, for a time when insurance isn't covering it all, um, you want to review that as a family to see if there are ways to save in healthcare by using in-network, trying to find those professionals, and kind of understanding that there are ways to make healthcare a financial choice as well. I'm going to move on to working adults now because they have other opportunities that come with working, which is a higher income. Um, we always want to review pay stubs, understand where things are coming from, where they're going to. A working individual is going to be taxed before they get their paycheck. And you want to encourage people to understand that that happens for everybody, and that's a good thing. Um, I'm speaking politically in some way, but the taxes that are paid by a young person or a person who has a disability does pay into the social security system that that they could benefit from even on their own work record. Particularly with young people who are just either full-time students, just leaving high school, or again in their early 20s, um, working as much as they can to the extent that they are able, and that they're staying within their benefit restrictions, um, can lead them to having more benefits through the SSDI program. So I want to encourage people to think about that. Um, the pay that is countable as countable earned income is the gross amount that is on the pay stub. And that is basically the salary and not what is paid to someone's bank account each month. And so that is something to be very aware of, looking at what are the countable income sources. It's that first number, the rate of pay, that $400 a month, um, that is the actual pay amount, and that these other things are being taken out of that amount to receive a lesser dollar amount on the actual paycheck. Um, so that's an important thing to be aware of when it comes to tracking countable income. Um, Gonna move on here. Other things that are important to consider are what does the employer offer as a benefit. In the state of Maryland, we have a really good Medicaid buy-in program. So if someone is working and independent, they can enroll in the Medicaid program for working adults that's called EID. And I have another slide further on down the road. That allows someone to use their 401k program um, and continue to receive benefits. The 401k program would be disallowed for SSI purposes, but if someone's on SSDI and enrolled in the EID program, they can enroll in their 401k, and that 401k will not be counted against them for their Medicaid. Um, and in general, SSDI doesn't care how many assets someone has. So it's the Medicaid that we're always concerned with. Health insurance is a benefit that people will receive if they're working enough hours or in a very generous company. Housing and transportation assistance are often something that can be offered, particularly in the DC area. And the long-term disability or life insurance might be an option as well. Stock options, we don't necessarily want to get too involved with because that becomes a trouble for benefits programs. But I do want to take a second to talk about disability and life insurance. In group plans, they don't care what your prior health conditions are. They group you with everybody else. So you are eligible if you have a free covered plan. You can enroll in your life insurance plan if you have autism, if you have other health conditions that are complicated, and still have a life insurance plan and have an opportunity to leave money to people that you care about. If you have a disability policy that your work is covering, you can also be enrolled in the disability policy, even if you have a technical disability. So the policy will not be paid out to you if you have a future disability related to your pre-existing disability. However, the disability policy will pay out to you and your family if you have an injury, a new disability unrelated to autism and other conditions that you already had. So even though it doesn't count pre-existing conditions for enrollment, it does count pre-existing conditions for the payout of the policy for disability insurance. I just wanted to kind of mention that if you have free insurance through work, enroll. There's nothing that's wrong with that. If you have an emergency that you need to step away from work and it's not related to your prior conditions, that disability policy can pay you part of what you are being paid as a worker. Again, as a person with income or even without, budgeting is going to be an important tool. Some people will have the ability to budget in this way and some people won't. But as long as someone's kind of headed toward this way, it's really good to keep these kind of ratios in mind. So this is the 50-30-20 rule: 50% for needs, 30% for wants, and 20% for savings and debt payments, like home. Like if you have mortgage payments, if you have car payments, if you have credit card payments. It's really hard for many of us to determine what is a want and what is a need. and that's practice. We all have to remember what our wants are versus our needs are. And sometimes our needs can feel, sometimes our wants can really feel like needs. Um, and so, as long as we're giving ourselves enough permission to spend on our wants when we have the ability to do that, our life will be rich and full. If we don't have enough to spend on wants, then we have to scale them back. You still want to spend some on the fun things in life that give you life meaning, enjoyment, enrichment, but if you can do those things in a less expensive way.
So we seem to be having some technical difficulties. Let me see if,
Many other really good kind of expenses.
yep, Liz is frozen, definitely. Let me see if she pops back up, logging back in and logging back out. Liz, if you can hear us, you're frozen on screen. And if you're talking, we can't hear you. So she's gonna log out, I imagine, and log back in. So take a break, get yourself a drink of water or something else. And she should be logging back in any minute. As I said, I have her presentation on a PDF, and I'll be able to send the slides out tomorrow. Let's give her a little bit to log back on. I'm just waiting to see if she pops up in the waiting room, logging in from another source. I know she said sometimes she has recently an internet issue, but it was holding on so far. But apparently it had enough. So we'll see another few minutes and we'll see if Liz pops up in the waiting room and we can let her back in and continue on from where we are. Even if she logs in by phone, I have her presentation that I could, here she comes in the waiting room now. There we go. Hold on one second.
All right. So
Hi,
just a
Liz.
quick little reset. Sorry about that.
Problem at all. Welcome back.
Thank you. So I am back on my computer, so I will be able to reshare if I I'm given that permission
Oh,
again.
sorry. Yeah, let me get that. Hold on one second.
Yeah. Thank you all for your patience and staying with us in this quick little blip of internet issues. So we were on this budgeting slide, and I'll move on. Okay, so an emergency fund is the safeguard towards kind of getting into more trouble with finances, and even just having $500 set aside, whether it's usually not in the standard checking account, but again, it's typically more in an able account, um, will be able to kind of really help put things in place for active motion, to get things back on track. Um, Cutting expenses will often need to happen if someone's spending over their income. And the way to do that is looking for subscriptions that you're no longer using, making sure that your expenses are aligned with the things that you care about, want, and need, and that you're not spending on things that you don't care about or that you don't need or want. And things like extending the time amount of time that you get things is another good way to start cutting expenses. Um, Certainly, other income driven support systems exist, including SNAP, SSI, SSDI. Um, Housing support programs can help minimize the expenses that you spend if you're getting a benefit, and living with other friends, living with family, um, and shared housing are all natural ways to limit expenses. We did cover this in the other presentation, and I'll go through it very quickly. SSI is a benefit that is asset and income limited. SSDI is just is just income limited for people who can't work full time competitively. The disabled adult child benefit is part of the SSDI program. Someone can earn their own way towards SSDI by working enough hours, in paying taxes into Social Security, and can get SSDI sooner sometimes than waiting for their parents to file for Social Security themselves. SSI is linked with Medicaid. SSDI is linked with Medicare. And Medicare is that federally provided health insurance. Medicaid is the state provided health insurance. And both are provided for people with disabilities. They can be combined to have better coverage. Not everyone who has a disability needs to be on a private pay plan if they're eligible for both Medicare and Medicaid, and have options to see who they need to. The EID program is, I mentioned earlier, is the Employed Individuals with Disabilities program. It increases the asset cap for Medicaid and increases the ability to earn. With Medicaid, that still kind of builds some tension with whether people keep SSI, the disabled adult child benefit, or SSDI if they're able to work. But Medicaid will stay around longer, even if someone's not on the Social Security programs anymore. And they'll be eligible to use 401k plans and 403b plans while on EID. And you can also just continue saving into the ABLE. I'm going to, I think, stop my presentation here, and may even go this one slide here. Not all who have a disability need benefits, and that's important to talk about as we're going towards the end here. If someone has learned to be financially independent and can work on their own, then certainly having supports that are around to help protect their needs, and to again build a rich life around them, then that's awesome. And they may not need these programs. The EID is a strong program to keep Medicaid for as long as someone might want or need it. But for others, they might not need to keep the benefit programs. It's really a very personal, medical, and financial choice that people need to make, whether they um, stay on benefits, apply for benefits in the first place, or just kind of go along with their personal ability to make money, spend money, and have the structures of support to make sure that they're financially independent. I will stop now, have some time for questions, and hopefully we can spend some time doing this for a while. Thank you.
Excuse me, sorry about that. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, feel free to put them into the chat bar and I can feed them to Liz. That was a great presentation, technical difficulties aside, which is certainly something that we experience more of. Never had that with a live workshop that we had in person where the speaker would just stand up at the front of the room and freeze. It's only on Zoom do we get
Let
that.
me just stop mid-sentence. I would not be surprised if I had that also. It's like,
That's funny.
I'm not going to say that. Let
That's
me
funny.
take that back.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the presentation again. If anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. If not, you can always email them over to me, and I will be glad to share them with Liz. But otherwise, I want to take time to say thank you so much, Liz. We appreciate you taking your time this evening out of your schedule to come and present for the second time to our families. And I think Planning Across the Spectrum has a really great person working for them. I think you present a lot of really good information to families and to autistic adults and to our audience, and we really do appreciate that. So thank you so much. And if anybody needs anything else, please feel free to reach out to me via email. But otherwise, everybody, thank you so much for attending and have yourselves a great night. Thanks very much. Take care. Good night, Liz.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.